Welcome to the Greater Than Business podcast, where it's all about creating an amazingly successful business without sacrificing your quality of life, because life should be greater than business. And now, here is your host, Courtney Bedore.
This is episode 55 of the Greater Than Business podcast, and today we are going to be talking all about emails, and specifically email numbers that you need to watch. Now, what I mean by that is when you send out an email, obviously you're sending it out for a purpose. Most of those emails will generally be either goodwill emails or sales emails. And no matter what type of email that you send as part of an email marketing campaign, you need to be making sure that you are getting the most return on your investment for sending out that email. Now, the majority of times, sending out an email doesn't cost you anything above and beyond the price of the email service provider that you're using, or like Infusionsoft or ActiveCampaign, something like that. So it's good to kind of make sure that you're recouping that expense at least in your business. So if you're spending $300 a month on Infusionsoft in order to send out emails, then you want to make sure that your emails are at least producing $300 a month. Now, for a lot of you, that might seem like a big number, but to a lot of you, that's going to seem like a really, really small number. So what I want to do today is talk about the key metrics and numbers that you should be looking at and what you should be considering as you are sending out emails. So we all know that there's obviously open rates, click rates, unsubscribe rates, and all of those things that you can easily see on any dashboard for any email system that you're using. But what I want to do is kind of dig deeper into why you should be monitoring those numbers and why they are so important. So firstly, the one statistic that you're going to want to look at for every single email that you send is the open rate. Now, open rates are going to be swayed a lot by what you have going on with your list hygiene. So if you have a list of 35,000 people, and of that list, 5,000 of them are actually active contacts, basically your list is only 5,000 people. You don't have 35,000, you have 5. So let's just put that out there. Let's give some real reality to the situation here, that if you have a list of 35,000 people, that is a vanity metric that you are keeping to make yourself feel better. So if you have a list of 35,000 and you are not sending and getting open rates that are higher than 20% of your list, then you need to clean your list, which I will talk about that on another episode, about the importance of list cleaning and all of that other stuff. But for this episode, we are going to talk about how open rates can determine if your list is healthy and why you should be monitoring that metric. So first off, open rates track how many subscribers open your email. So no matter where you're sending it to, you'll have a list of people you send it to and how many people open. So if you're sending it to your whole list, chances are your open rate is going to be a lot lower than someone that is sending it to 10 people that have paid to get that email. So that's a big thing that I want to kind of just also put out there too, that there's a lot of scammy people online that will show that they're getting amazing open rates of 85% or 99% of my people are opening my emails. But there's always kind of a little asterisk beside claims like that, because it depends on who you sent that email to. If you're sending it to people that are expecting it and that they paid for it, obviously they're going to open at a higher rate than sending an email to a cold and unengaged list. So always keep that in the back of your mind when you're reading people's glorified stats of how amazing they are, because sometimes it's just not true. And honestly, if you are one of those people that's getting 90% open rates, hit me up because I want to know how you're doing it. But what I kind of want to just get across there is that open rates really matter if you are monitoring your list hygiene and being very meticulous about cleansing your list and making sure that you have very engaged people on your list. And if you have 35,000 and only 5,000 people are opening throughout the course of a month, then you need to really think about what you're going to do with that other 30,000 people that are just not engaging. And eventually it will start hurting your sender reputation. So you want to make sure that you are paying attention to your open rate, you are giving praise to the people that are opening your emails, and that you are creating an environment where open rates are helping to make business decisions for you. So I really want to stress one thing about open rates. The biggest thing, obviously, one good way to bring up your open rates is to have a really good subject line. So that is one thing that is kind of the main reason why you want to look at your open rates. You'll be able to see how well your list is doing, how engaged they are, all of that other stuff. But the other thing is that if you send out the same email to, like, one half of your list gets one email and the other half gets another email, and you notice that your subject line, and you obviously are doing a split test, and subject line A gets 50% open rate, subject line B gets 15% open rate, then obviously you know that subject line A would be the email that you would want to mimic. So that's the subject line that you would want to make sure you write that down as a winner. And then you'd want to make sure that as you're sending out other emails that you are kind of using that data that you've got. And if you know that that subject line works, then use a variation of that for some other emails that you're writing or sending. So generally, sometimes if you use the subscriber's first name in your email, that can boost up your open rates, as well as sometimes people use emojis as well. I personally don't like using emojis in subject lines. I find them to be, I don't know how to really word it, but I find it to be something that I cannot control. I can't, when I put in the code for an emoji in an email subject line, I can't control what that's going to look like in other people's inboxes, because sometimes it just looks like a bunch of gibberish, and that's not helpful. So use them sparingly. Make sure if you're using them that you are testing. There are email services out there. I believe there's one called Litmus, I think. I'm just saying this off the top of my head. I honestly can't remember the name of the service, but I will link it in the show notes. But there is a service out there where you can actually see and you can test if you're going to use emojis and all of that stuff in your email, in your email subject lines, so that you can make sure that it actually looks good for the people that are going to be opening up your emails. So another thing that I want to kind of just put out there that I don't think is talked about enough is that most emails don't get above 25% open rates. The average is a little over 24%. So if you are managing an email list and you are running a business that has email open rates higher than 25%, then you are doing really, really well. Keep it up. And if you are getting lower than 25%, then you want to make sure that you are cleaning your list and culling your list and really getting those people engaged and giving them a reason to open. So if you have, a couple episodes ago, I talked about a re-engagement series in order to bring back your list to life and get them back into being engaged with you. That is a campaign where you would want to put people into and really use compelling subject lines in those emails to be able to get people to open. So that's really, really important. So open rates are a huge number that you should be paying attention to, but I want you to always remember that open rates are determined by your list hygiene. That is number one. And that open rates can also be drastically influenced by your subject line. So keep that in mind when you're writing a subject line. You may think like, oh, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to type in a subject line of like, hey, how's it going? That might not get as many opens as saying something like, I see what you're doing there. And then they're like, well, what do you see? I have to open this and figure out what you're talking about. So it's just the way that you can engage with your list and kind of get their wheels turning before they actually open the email. And sometimes I don't necessarily like doing like clickbait and shock email subject lines, but sometimes those actually work. So in a re-engagement series, that's a good spot to put those shocking subject lines. And I don't mean anything rude or derogatory or taking a stance one way or another on any major, huge issues, but just doing something kind of clever that just kind of pops and will make it stand out in their inbox, because you are competing every single time you send an email with every other business that is sending emails to that person. So that is who your competition is in the inbox, is anybody else that could possibly be sending an email to your ideal client. So you need to really get into their head and think, how can I get my ideal client to want to open up this email? So super, super good advice there of just basically pay attention to your open rate and really monitor those numbers. And remember that if your open rate is low, there's things that you can do to help boost it up. So don't get discouraged. Just keep it on, and you will do a great job with it. So the next thing I want to talk about is your click-through rate. So when you're writing an email, there are a few ways that you can actually boost up your click-through rate. Usually it means that you would have like a really nice call to action and put that call to action in places where people would be most likely to click. So generally at the bottom of the email is the best spot for it, because there's some people that will just look at your email, read the subject line, scan the first paragraph, scroll down to the bottom to find out what your offer is or what the point of the email was. Then they might actually go up and read the email, but a lot of times they'll just scroll all the way down to the bottom just to be like, okay, get to the point. Why are you emailing me? So you want to make sure that you have a call to action at the very bottom of your email. Usually a lot of people use a PS as a good spot to kind of summarize the email. I have found that work really, really well for getting click-through rates higher. And just to to give you a little bit of context to click-through rates, the average click-through rate is usually just over 4%. So that may seem a little bit like, really? My whole list, only 4% of the people that open are actually going to click. But that right there is your hot leads. They're the ones clicking. Therefore, it doesn't matter how many people are clicking. As long as they're clicking, you have a pool of hot leads that will hopefully lead to a sale. So the next topic that I want to bring up is your conversion rate. So that takes it a little bit further with the click-through rate, because a conversion rate is someone that opens your email, they click, they go to the call to action page, and then they actually take action. So that is super important, because click-through rates don't necessarily mean that that person is going to then buy or join or do whatever your call to action is. What the call to action is getting them to convert to something else. So if you're sending out a sales email and you've got a pretty little link and everyone clicks it and they go through and they get to your sales page and then they don't convert, then that is where you can see where the problem is. So the problem might be on your sales page. So it might not be your email, it might be wherever you're sending them to. So that is a really important data point to watch, because if you're not converting from the emails you're sending, then you're giving them enough information in the emails in order to make an informed decision to click, but yet somewhere on your sales page, you're losing them. So you want to make sure that you keep an eye on your conversion rates, because that right there will give you the best insight that you can on exactly how your emails are performing. Because the point of sending an email with a call to action, like buying something, is to actually get someone to buy. And if they're not doing that, then you need to figure out why and then tweak it so that you can actually get the results that you're aiming to get. Conversion rates are also going to give you a unique insight into the return on investment that I talked about at the beginning of the episode. So you want to make sure that you are actually getting your money's worth. And if you're not tracking conversion rates, then obviously you don't know if you're getting your money's worth out of your email system, or if you are getting your money's worth out of the specific campaign that you've just built. So if you've built one of my favorite campaigns to build is a weekend sales funnel. So what it is it starts on a Friday and you offer a crazy, ridiculous offer on a Friday. And it lasts for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then it's done on Sunday night at midnight. So it's just something you can easily run over the weekend. And it's usually something that I set up well in advance and keep it very evergreen so that whenever I feel like I want a cash injection in my business, then I just fire this campaign to a subset of my list that I think would be interested in that offer. So something like that, where I've gone through days of prep and obviously creating whatever I'm selling, and then going through the prep of making sure that I have set up the campaign, I've paid my VAs, I've done all of this stuff. I'm going to have a price tag on this campaign. That is the price tag that I'm then going to be making sure that I'm getting my return on my investment from. So something to consider, but make sure that you are monitoring your conversion rates. So the next part, we're going to get into the downside of email marketing. So the first thing we're going to talk about is your bounce rates. So bounce rates are basically giving you a quick number of all of the people that you tried to send an email to and they didn't get it. And there's two different types of bounces. There's a soft bounce and a hard bounce. A soft bounce means that there's a temporary issue with someone's email address. So it might be that their inbox is too full. It might be that they have a server issue and they're just not receiving emails right now. It's very minimal. Sometimes they're just totally random soft bounces, but soft bounces are a good number to pay attention to, but they're not as detrimental to your business as hard bounces. A hard bounce is someone that has an invalid email in your system. So if you have several hard bounces, then you want to make sure that you are deleting those off of your list because they're just taking up space and it's just kind of skewing your metrics because they're dead email addresses. So you just need to get rid of them. Sometimes you can take a look at the spelling of the email address, and sometimes they just, instead of typing Gmail, they've typed Gmail or something like that. So those types of things are usually easy fixes. But if it's obviously an email address that looks like it's spammy and it's obviously not getting delivered, then those are the ones that you want to make sure that you are deleting and getting them out of your system ASAP. So the other reason that you want to monitor bounce rates is because that will tell you the quality of your subscriber list. And what that means is if you're running ads specifically, I have seen this happen countless times where you run an ad and what will happen is a bot will see it and they'll get on your landing page and they will opt in hundreds of times. And when that happens, this happened more a couple of years ago. It's not so prevalent now, but it's something that has happened. So I just wanted to kind of bring it up. But those email addresses are usually just, it's a bot, obviously, that's just spewing out emails. So if you see a lot of emails coming through your system that have email addresses of 5dxy25789 at hotmail.com, chances are that's going to be a bounced email. It's not going to be a customer that's ever going to open an email. So ones like that, you want to make sure that you're getting rid of. And it will let you know if you have any fake email addresses in your system, and that is not what you want. So a way that you can combat that is having a double opt-in requirement. So if someone opts into your list, then they have to double opt in before they actually get on your real mailing list. So I do have some solutions for that when someone comes into your list and they don't double opt in, but yet it looks like they have a real email address. You can actually just put them into another email campaign that will encourage them to actually double opt in and confirm before you start sending them a whole lot of more promotional emails and newsletters and all of that stuff. So it's super important to keep an eye on your bounce rates. And if it gets too high, then that can also signal something wrong with your list or something wrong with your domain reputation. So if you're getting lots of soft bounces, then that might mean that servers are not accepting your emails. And that's when you'd want to make sure that you've got all of your deliverability looked after. So that's a big one. The other one that I want to talk about now is number of unsubscribers. Unsubscribes are your friend. I have said that multiple times. I always will embrace that. But at the same time, when you get an unsubscribe, it stings a little. So you want to make sure that you are avoiding unsubscribes as best as you can. However, remember that if people are unsubscribing, they are just letting you know that they're not a good fit for whatever it is that you're offering. Basically view it as a go on your way. Thanks for stopping by. See you later. I wish you nothing but the best, but you're off my list now is basically kind of how I would view it. And you try and keep it in a positive mind frame, but you are going to get unsubscribes. And why you want to monitor this is because you want to make sure that you're not getting massive amounts of unsubscribes due to whatever you put in your email or your subject line or other things like that. So it's a good one to kind of make sure that you don't do something so shocking in an email in order to get people to open, because they might just be opening to unsubscribe. So there's a fine line with that, and you want to make sure that you are really paying attention to your unsubscribes, because while they are a good thing for your list, too many of them can be a bad thing, and that can be a sign that you're doing something wrong. So make sure that you keep an eye on it, and it really will help your business to grow if you pay attention to your unsubscribes and realize what is turning people on and what is turning people off of your brand. So on top of that, I want to talk about list growth. So monitoring your list growth is a huge, it's a massive thing that you want to be paying attention to. And the way that you can monitor your list growth is by taking the number of new subscribers that you have on, if you're doing it weekly, daily, monthly, whatever, you take that list or that number of new subscribers and then minus the list of unsubscribes, because you will get people that will opt in and then immediately unsubscribe. And then divide that number by the total number of email addresses on your list and then multiply that by 100. That is how you can get your list growth rate. And obviously you want to make sure that your list growth rate is steadily going up as you're growing your business. So you want to make sure that you're monitoring, pick a time frame that makes sense for you. So if you want to do it monthly, that's fine. If you'd like to do it weekly, that's fine. But you just need to make sure that it's a stat that you can pull and keep up with pulling. So you don't want to pull it once and then just forget to do it again. So set it up in your task management system. Make sure that you get into a healthy routine of checking your list growth rate. And if you start seeing that going down, then that's a signal in your business that you need to ramp up your email efforts again, or you need to go out and find new subscribers. So as I always say, the focus of your business has got to be on list building. And then obviously the secondary focus of your business is once they get on your list, then you need to make sure that you are giving them the value and the content and the knowledge that you promised them. So focus on ways that you can continually grow your list, engage your subscribers, and then also be finding new subscribers that are out there that are very similar to the ones that you already have. So if you're not monitoring your list growth rate, then you obviously won't be able to judge what you're doing and be able to tweak it in a way that benefits your business more so. So the next thing I want to talk about is spam complaints, because that is a big one that you will see when you pull any report on emails. And that can be something that is obviously not a good thing to have a high number. So you want to make sure that you are not getting a lot of spam complaints on your email. And if you are, do not send that email again. Look at it, see why they were thinking that it was spam, and make sure that you are adjusting that email to make it appear less spammy. So usually people will just mark it as spam if sometimes they just don't understand that they can just unsubscribe, which is the nice way of going off someone's list. But if they don't understand how to just unsubscribe, they might flag it as spam. And if they do that, then what happens is you actually get a hit back onto your domain reputation. And email service providers want to make sure that they are tracking your spam complaints, because that is a metric that they monitor highly. Because if it gets too high, then they might view you as a liability to their brand. So if you're using Infusionsoft, let's say, and you're sending out a whole bunch of emails, but you've got a really, really high spam rate, then what that does is actually hits back on Infusionsoft as well. So a domain reputation for your business is one thing, but then Infusionsoft also has a domain reputation because you're actually sending through their servers. And if Infusionsoft is getting a lot of spam complaints from all of their people, then they start looking at it and going, okay, you're a bad apple, you're a bad apple, you're a bad apple, and they can actually take your account away. So you want to make sure that you are monitoring your spam complaints and keeping that to a minimum. So last thing, actually a couple more, but this is a big one that I want to talk about, and it kind of goes into my last point as well. But you want to be monitoring your overall return on investment for each email that you send or each email campaign sequence that you send. So if it's a series of emails, let's use the weekend sale that I mentioned earlier as an example. So I've set up this email series that sends out 5 emails. There's 1 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, and it's just for a quick push. It's a cash injection in my business that I'm looking for, and that's my plan, and I just basically use it all the time. So if I have a campaign like that in my business, then I want to make sure that I'm getting a return on investment. And the only way that you can track that is if you're paying attention to all of the numbers that I just said, but you are also making sure that you're actually making money from this campaign that you've set up. So you need to be tracking this no matter what stage of business you are at. You need to make sure that you know how much money and how much time you've put into setting up this sale or this campaign and how many emails it is and all of that stuff. And then you need to make sure that each time you send out that series, that you are getting a decent return on investment. If you're not, then you need to go back and tweak it a little bit more. But if you are, then good job. You did it. So you want to make sure that you calculate this by taking the money that you made in sales from the campaign, so the 4-day sale over the weekend. Then you want to make sure that you minus the money that you spent to execute the campaign. So usually this will only be a one-time thing where you look at making that revenue back. Now, if you don't make your revenue back, then you can continue trying to get your return on your investment by tweaking and testing it until you actually get a decent sales number from your campaign. But you want to make sure that you track all of the money that you spent to execute the campaign and then divide that by the money invested in the campaign and then multiply that by 100. So you're finding out this, basically the percentage of the return on your investment and making sure that you have a good ROI, because you want to make sure that out of any digital marketing strategy that you have out there, that your emails are actually working, because email marketing is a tricky little thing, but once you nail it, you're set. So pay really close attention each time you build out a series or an email sequence that you're actually getting your money back. Because if you're not, then you've just created really fancy emails that aren't making you any money. And you definitely want to be making money. And especially in a campaign where you're trying to make money. I guess I should specify that, because there are campaigns that you can build out that will not give you $1 return. Those ones are more for re-engagement or building know, like, and trust factor, all of those other things. But I'm speaking specifically right now about sales email campaigns and making sure that you're getting the most out of those emails. So the other part that kind of ties into that is the revenue per email. So you can actually go in and break it down. So if I'm using my weekend sales template as my example again, you will want to go in and actually figure out the ROI on each individual email as well. So you can see from looking at the data of, okay, email 1 gets a 20% open rate and a 2% click-through rate, and I make 3 sales on it. Email 2, I get 5 sales, and I've got a lower open rate, but a higher click rate in email 2 for some reason. But I make 5 sales in that email. Email 3, let's say I don't get any sales from that email. Well, then I know that I have to go back and reconfigure email 3. And then email 4, I can see that, oh, look, okay, I've got 10 sales from email 4. And then usually the way that email funnel type campaigns will go is email 5, which is your last email, will get, say, 15 sales. So it's obviously more than the first email that you sent out. But as a series, all of the emails are performing except for email 3. So for my overall ROI, I'm making money and I'm covering all my expenses and I've got a good return on investment. However, email 3, I'm seeing could be a little bit better. So you can track it and break it down by emails as well. So it's not just the overall ROI, but specifically your revenue per email, which is huge. That is a big thing to monitor. So determining what the revenue is per email will show you the individual success of each email, as I just said. And determining this figure can easily help you figure out what's performing best and which ones need a little bit of tweaking. So it's super, super simple to just be able to look at your stats and go, oh, that one, there's our problem. Let's make it better. And it's not necessarily even a problem, but it's room for improvement. So you can always be looking at making things better. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. This episode got a little bit longer than I wanted to, but there are so many good gems in here. If you are in the middle of doing any sort of email marketing in your business, then you want to know these numbers. And if you don't know these numbers and you don't want to run this, then hire someone to help you pull all these stats and monitor it, because you really, really should be, because sending out emails without monitoring your stats just doesn't make sense. And it doesn't help to grow your business. You should always be data driven in your business. And it doesn't necessarily have to be you that is the one that is data driven, but you need to be able to get someone on your team to pull these reports for you and make sure that all of your efforts are going into the right place and your focus is in the right area of your business. And you can't make those decisions unless you're paying attention to the numbers and the metrics in your business. So I hope that this episode has helped you, that you can go in and take a look at the campaigns that you have set up and the emails that you're sending and start getting some return on investment juices going in your business, because it's super fun once you start monitoring all of this and being able to basically have it delivered to you so that you can see where the opportunities are to get better with your emailing and your marketing strategy. So as usual, if you guys have any questions at all about this episode, you can shoot me an email, which you can find at the show notes page. And you can find the show notes at greaterthanbusiness.com/055. And everything will be listed there for you. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to talk to you again next week.
Thanks for listening to the Greater Than Business podcast at www.greaterthanbusiness.com.